Okay, hello to everyone. Um, this is our regular Monday night class, and we start out as always with joining palms, bowing, and recitation of the four great vows. Please join palms and bow. Four great vows. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations, actually of self-nature. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma of self-nature. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood of self-nature. Welcome to you all. I have perhaps a bit of a potpourri of things that have been going through my head, and I'm going to try to weave them together. Some of them maybe read, some of them just out of memory. But it is something that I think this lecture is about how to practice, and this is something that I was kind of inspired by the Sutra of Perfect Enlightenment, and as well as other sutras from the Sheng Sutra and the Asta Sutra, and then also the Lotus Sutra, the chapter 2 of immeasurable practices or means, and they all kind of fit together. And one of the things that I've been seeing that people are doing now is beginning to not only link the dharmas together, but link the sutras and the treatises together, where it's all beginning to fit. And actually, this takes quite a bit of time to do this, sometimes years, but some of you have really been accelerating in your practices. I'm very, very happy to see that, because as you're accelerating and beginning to understand more what the practice is, you are able to not only just practice better for yourself, but also serve as a proper vessel for spreading the Dharma. Of course, when we spread the Dharma, what we have to do is have right view. And right view is how mind works. When we begin to understand how mind works, this is something that's very important to us. And we have to know how to be able to present the Dharma in an order in which we can show how mind works in a manner which is capable of the understanding of the person that we're presenting it to. Here in mind work, I presented at a little bit higher level, or more than a little bit, but nevertheless still taking care of the novice. The Sutra of Immeasurable Means talks about that the water from, let's say, just a ditch, a water from all the way up through to an ocean or a pool or a stream, it's all the same water, but nevertheless, there is still a bit of a difference there. And that difference is distinguished by whether one is a Shravaka, one that's just a sound hearer, just has an interest in hearing the Dharma, and they're just beginning to get on their feet with respect to Buddha Dharma, to those who are Pratika Buddha, which is one that is learning, not necessarily yet in command of Mahayana training or the metaphysical training, and then the third being the metaphysical training and the study of Mahayana Buddhism. And while they all have the same property as being the water, but nevertheless there's a more profoundness in the Mahayana, which could be equated to an ocean. There is no stepping stone from one to another to another. And I think that that's something that Buddhism, that's a little bit of a flaw in Buddhism, as Buddhism is always making lists of things and making things look as if there is some kind of a uniform progression in the practice, that one has to follow all of these steps in a particular order and until they get to the right point. And this kind of a practice is one that actually can serve as a retardation of your progress, rather than some kind of a guidepost. It isn't in this way. We take these types of points, even if one is a Shravaka level, as the pointers or indicators of what should be there, but not that one acts in a particular way to do this. And I gave this example in the last retreat I had at Chandgrove, which was that we as practitioners are not acting like a bodhisattva. Acting like a bodhisattva is like an actor, let's say a Western actor in a martial arts movie. Maybe I shouldn't say Western actor. There's good Western martial artists, but you may, if somebody's saying, "Oh, play like you're a martial artist," and the actor goes like this, and like they want to give a karate chop or something, then you go, no, that person doesn't have any kung fu or any experience. They're just acting that way. But if they ever got into a real engagement, they would be on their pants very quickly. We don't act in that way. Rather, what we do is we demonstrate what we have. Even if we were a white belt, we would still were able to demonstrate what we have learned to that point. And it's not going to be this. It's going to be something that has some solid foundation. And when you see somebody who practices Kung Fu or some other martial art, one of the first things you look at is their stance. Do they have a root? Are they grounded? No. How are they sitting? Are they standing up tall? Are they sitting, in a position? How is their weight? All of these things are the foundation. So even if you're just beginning, you could demonstrate that. And the thing is this is the same in terms of our practice of Buddha Dharma, is we are demonstrating what we have encountered up to that point. What has been presented to us, we demonstrate it in a sincere way. We know we're not the Buddha. We know we're not a Maha Bodhisattva, but at least we can demonstrate that part. And that's what's important, that we do it in this way. One of the other things that is kind of a vein that's been running through is in this Sutra of Perfect Enlightenment, is the illusion samadhi. And this is an early samadhi. And again, I don't want to go into all the different kinds of samadhi states or list of samadhis and things of that nature, because it depends on whose list it is, what kind of samadhi we're talking about. But I'll just put it in kind of in this way, where this illusion samadhi is a very good one, where some people are beginning to get to this point. And this illusion samadhi is that when one begins to look around in their environment and begin to recognize that their environment is an illusion, is a dream, a phantasm. and when we begin to see things in this way, it's different because so the reason they say phantasm, because sometimes maybe it's not that great of a dream, right? It could be a bad dream, but it's something that we go, what was that? Oh, and we hear a crack in the wall and we go, oh, that must be something evil or whatever. No, it's just a wall expansion or whatever. I'm not saying that ghosts and things don't exist, but I'm just saying that the mind is clear about what's there, and we have to get to the point where in this looking around at illusion, that we turn the mind's eye inward, a very tricky term to discuss. I think it was Joyce that was asking me what's the definition of that, and you can look at Mindwork Forum and find out. I gave a pretty thorough response to her in terms of what it is, turning the mind's eye inward. But when we turn the mind's eye inward, and again, even as I'm saying this, I'm saying it in a conventional way, kind of a collective indictment of my mistake there. There's no we there. There cannot be a we there when there is no you and no me. We are not turning the mind's eye inward. It is simply the mind is observing everything correctly without obstructions. What are the obstructions? The obstructions is taking this world, this environment that we're in, to be real. Sariputra, its form is empty, emptiness is form, all the way to consciousness is empty, and emptiness is consciousness. We never really probed that deep enough. You have to really contemplate that very deep. In the last retreat I did, I went deeper and deeper into the Heart Sutra until you see this third level of Mahayana all the way through to the esoteric. And it is this that we begin to get to when we are aware, using this non-conceptual wakefulness, we're aware of the environment, and we're aware that this environment, me included, is an illusion. It's an illusion of mine. So we cannot just simply dismiss it and say, well, let's dismiss Gilbert because he said he's just nothing but a projection on a screen. But it's a good projection, at least I think so. But in any case, it's something it's where the Asta Sutra comes in and says that it is neither existent nor non-existent. Now, let's stop for a moment to kind of look at that for a bit. So it is neither that it exists, that I exist, but it's also that it's neither that I either I don't exist or exist. The two are not the solution, because those two are conceptual thinking, something that exists and something that doesn't exist. But mind is not in this way. The Sutra of Immeasurable Means to Practice, actually that's from the chapter 2 of the Lotus Sutra, it talks about different kinds of lack of duality, listing different things that are not dual. And quite a few sutras do the same thing, so that we don't look at things in this way. It is what the Heart Sutra is also banging on, that everything is empty. It is neither this nor that. It appears that way, but that only takes us so far. And probably the hardest part for us to accept is the very point of that is there a you that is thinking about this? And I've mentioned this so many times now from the Shurangama Sutra, where Sariputra was saying, "Oh, I understand. What it is just it's my mind that's perfected, and it's so clear." And this is where the Buddha admonished him, "That's not your mind." And there's a stop, boom, and it's an important stop that's there. I remember many years ago, perhaps 30 years ago, I was in Toronto and giving a lecture, and there was actually monastics in the crowd. And then I asked people to raise their hand. How many do they think that Ananda was right in his last one? And most of the people raised their hand, and then I just yelled at them, and it was extremely shocking to people, including the monastics, when I said, "That's not your mind." It just brought everything to an incredible halt in that moment, because there was nowhere they could go with that. What do you mean that's not his mind? What are we practicing for? How can we get there? Well, that's the trick, is that you can't really get anywhere, because you are also an illusion, a phantasm, a dream. Your consciousness, you seem to forget that consciousness is empty. You are not there as an individual. That's what the Buddha taught from the very beginning. He was trying to teach everybody the Four Noble Truths, and then to those who could understand it, then he taught a little deeper until he finally he got to the 12 nidanas, and was presenting the 12 nidanas. But none of that points to that there is a life, personality, ego, or a being in existence. But we cannot say that it is not in existence either, because it still belongs to mind. It is this middle ground in which Nagarjuna from the Madhyamaka school, the middle way, the Chinese San Lun school, understood that it was there where he put up apparent reality and absolute reality. And you go, well, how can you have an apparent reality and an absolute reality? That doesn't make any sense. Does that mean that these two truths are two truths, and verifying that there is a separate existence? It isn't necessarily in that way, because it's not saying that there is a separate existence. It is simply pointing towards the reconciliation of what appears to be apparent reality and absolute. Apparent reality is everything that appears. And we from the sutras, we understand there's so many types of ways where they talk about appearances. And the first being from the Trikaya, and the Nirmanakaya, the appearance body of the Buddha. But on the other hand, since we all possess Buddha nature and Buddha mind, these bodies that we use to navigate or course through this world are also appearance bodies in an appearance world. That is the truth, the apparent reality truth. And so that's something that's very important that we understand, that in that way. On the other hand, the absolute is inconceivable and non-conceptual. It is not easy for us to even begin to address that as to what, we cannot say, if somebody asked you what is the absolute, there's no way that that could be depicted in any kind of a knowing way. Why? Because the one that's asking is in the apparent reality. The absolute is something that is unobtainable. Unobtainable. There is no wisdom nor any attainment. Why do they say there is no wisdom? Because if that wisdom pertains to a life, personality, ego, or being, since those beings are non-existent, how could they have wisdom? So from this side of the dream world, trying to define what's in the absolute or try to measure it in this way, it isn't. That's why they talk about immeasurable means. You cannot measure it. They sometimes use the term 84,000, but 84,000 is just a convenience word to mean that it's incalculable. So if we're going to practice, then we have to practice from this viewpoint of mind and right view, which is that we are not trying to invest in saving the self or anybody else's self for that matter. Although what appears to be there in terms of things, there's a contradiction, which is that we want to save innumerable sentient beings, but these innumerable sentient beings are of the self nature of mind. They are not individuals, and this is an incredibly important aspect of our practice, because we have to let go of the idea of the ego. Anybody who suffered today has suffered because of their ego. And anybody who has found peace and solace, true peace and solace in today, even if it was only a minute of time, it's because that the ego is not present. I'm not saying the peace and solace of the fact that you used one of those lotto scratchers and won $10,000. That's not peace and solace, because what you're going to do is you're probably going to spend half of that on more tickets tomorrow, chasing your tail. But truly being quiet, truly being able to set the ego down and use the mind. What is important and what I emphasize when I give retreats from day one, from hour one, minute one, is that the mind that people are listening to me with is the Buddha mind. That there is no other mind besides this mind that you're using right now. It's the Buddha mind. It's hard for us to understand it because from lifetime after lifetime and experiences in this lifetime, we've obscured its luminosity and its clearness. And even if we talk about luminosity, that too can be a trap, because if I talk about the radiant light of the mind, people start looking for the radiant light of the mind. But even the radiant light of the mind has to be put down. It is that radiant light of the mind which is ground zero for ignorance. But for that radiant light of the mind, there would be no ignorance. How did it come about? We don't know. The Buddha didn't talk about that. My master didn't talk about that. I'm not talking about that. No. And one would have to have some kind of an incredible watch, smarter than the smartwatches, to be able to figure out exactly when that all started. But we only know that it comes, this ignorance comes from mind. If we do not see it in this way, we're fooling ourselves. Well, if we call ourselves, we're fooling for sure. But conventionally, we can still talk about ourselves, but you can't cling to that idea. When we look around, we understand that everything in our in what we see, when we are at our home, work, driving on the road, when we're in a dream, is an illusion. An illusion that's created by mind. I belabor this point because it's important for you to begin to see this in this way. To talk in this way to beginners, it is sometimes not helpful. We have to give them the Shravaka training first. But in this class, we have more of an opportunity, giving me a leeway to be able to present to you what if Gilbert is right about this? What if everything is a dream? When we begin to look at the world in this way, the world becomes a little closer, a little more intimate. We not only are able to see the world through our eyes, but through the eyes of all of those around us. It is in this way, because the mind is not obstructed, it is able to see things in a much different way, a much clearer way. And this is what is very important. So if we're going to do mind work, we have to do it in a proper way. We have to be able to understand that the mind that we're using is Buddha mind. You may say, well, I don't feel like a Buddha. I don't even feel like a half Buddha, much less even a Bodhisattva. It's okay. In due time, the mind will clear. It's not going to clear all at once, although at some point it is like a standing on a hill made of sand. Try to picture that, not made of rock, but made of sand. And you're at the top of the hill, and little by little you begin to excavate the sand, taking it out, taking it out, taking it out. And then one moment, boom, it all collapses very quickly. This is the subitism or sudden illumination of Master Hui Neng, is that it works in this way. Little by little, we begin to undermine that which we think is real. It's a Heart Sutra. No, Sariputra, it's not real. It's empty. It is in this way. So we need to begin to see, what does this emptiness mean? This emptiness is not the emptiness of nothing there, but the emptiness of no duality, no viewpoint. If everything is mind, who is there to call it other than mind? Who is there to call it mind in the first place? It is why I am always saying it's not that the two return to one, it's where the one returns to, where there is not anything to say, oh, that's the one. If you say that, it's duality. But it is all mind. It's difficult for us to do that because we are constantly trying to process this information from samsara. When we can let go of this, we can let go of trying to make sense of it in the samsaric world. The mind is liberated. It is free. It if it wants, it can vault out of this this world, because the world itself is an illusion. When I say vault, I'm using that kind of like to able to jump out of the bubble. What is beyond that? It's useless to even begin to talk about it, except for to say that it is truly beyond infinity. We say infinite, but it's even beyond the idea of an infinite light. There's no description to it, because outside of samsara, there is no such thing as in infinity. It is simply mind without the name mind. This takes time, but me repeating it to you again and again, little by little, that sand hill is going to be undermined and it's going to collapse. If you practice from the idea of creating these steps up to heaven, how many steps do you need? The Lotus Sutra says immeasurable means. When are you going to finish the immeasurable means? When are you going to finish all of the Buddha Dharma? It is not in this way. And the sutra is saying you don't have to try to finish everything. You just have to finish the self. All of the sutras are designed to create this kind of an environment that does not support continuation of the ego, does not support the idea of a self. And isn't that really what Hui Ning was taught by Holmgren, on the third watch, when they read the Diamond Sutra and said, give rise to mind that is nowhere supported. Give rise to mind that's nowhere supported. What kind of a mind is that? It isn't a mind as an ego can see it. It isn't a consciousness. It is simply mind. Mind is in this way. We don't have to try to imagine that. This is where the ego must let go. It must not be looking outside of samsara. It doesn't matter. It's useless because the eyes and the perception of the skandha are limited. They're limited only to usefulness in the samsaric world. But if we let go of that, then there's nowhere that the mind is not, just in this way. And it's important At the retreat, I used a bit of a crude example, but it actually comes from the Chan stories, where one master was coming home late one night from being lecturing in the city, and he was with this small little uh, uh, disciple, young disciple, and as he was passing to go to the temple, there were statues of the Buddhas along the way. And because he was so old, he knew he wasn't going to be able to make it back to the temple. So he went to the side of the temple, to the one of the statues, and relieved himself. And the young monk was like shocked, and he said, "But Shifu, you're peeing right next to the Buddha statue." And the master just looked back at him and said, "Point to me where the Buddha's not, and there I'll pee." And it is in this way that we understand there is no place, nowhere, no time, no distance between the Buddha mind and your own mind. They're precisely the same. It is in this way. It's not just empty, it's precisely empty. And as we begin to look at this and look at the Heart Sutra, we begin to see the Heart Sutra in a different way, in a deeper way. And some of you have been with me for a while now, and you've been able to explore deeper into the Heart Sutra, from the simple Shravaka hearing level to the metaphysical to the esoteric, to be able to bridge between the apparent reality and the absolute reality. And it is in this way, and it's very interesting because in the sutra, in the Lotus Sutra, the Sutra of Immeasurable Means, they were asking the Buddha about how one should practice. And it was very interesting what the Buddha said, because it said that he looked into the absolute for the proper response. And in order to be able to communicate with the sentient beings, looking into the absolute, but yet understanding, even though he had one foot in the absolute, he had the other foot in samsara. And sometimes it's that way, that if people are asking these more deep and profound questions, the mind naturally goes to the absolute to be able to find the proper presentation of the Dharma for that particular point. And it's something that is something very it's very interesting how it works that way. One day, I hope that your practice can reach to this point and beyond. But it is in this way that what the Buddha was pointing to is that the answer doesn't lie in samsara, but it lies in that compassionate heart that tries to spread across not only samsara, but the absolute as well, to try to bring them together in an intimate way. Again, these are simply words at this point, but as you begin to practice, it will be this way. In the retreat, I stressed that one had to constantly be practicing in a continuous way. It is this way. The more that you spend in Dharma, in the practice, whether it's reading the sutras, preparing for a lecture, um, sitting in meditation, whatever it is, engaged in wholesome discussions or study, the more likely that um, the obstructions will peel away because you're not giving those obstructions and vexations a fertile ground upon which to be fostered. When we're constantly thinking of the I, me, mine, the ego, or whatever, and sometimes I have people that are talking to me from the ego viewpoint, and I stress you have to put the ego down. You cannot see clearly with from the ego viewpoint. And if you put the ego down, then you put the self down. And that's important. You don't put the self nature down. You need that. But you put down the idea that there's a separate life or being that is engaged in suffering. When you suffer, be like a referee in a game and blow the whistle. You know, you just committed a foul. What was the foul? You let the ego there. Too many people in the game. What do you mean too many people? You don't need yourself. So they have to go. The self nature can stay there, but turning the mind's eye inward, then we see this and we understand that this is the the source of the problem. When we begin to spot the ego and its grasping, and from it's reaching for this, attaching for that, creating this, all the way up through birth and death. When we stop that process, then we can reverse engineer and work back through the nidanas until we get back to the ignorance. And then understanding that originally in mind, there was not any ignorance. In Shakyamuni's mind, he had this ignorance that was there. That's why it required himself to come back and come back and come back to do this. But in a primordial Buddha, an original Buddha, that was not there. That ignorance was not there. Nor is it there now anyway, but it wasn't something that was creating vexations or obstructions or obscurations in the mind. Those were not there. When we reverse engineer back through and eliminate ignorance, then it works. If you're a cigarette smoker and one day you were smoking a cigarette and you go, this is making me cough, it's making my breath smell, my teeth black, my fingers yellow, my life shorter. I don't really need this. Wow, that's wisdom. It's everyday wisdom, but not bad. But one day you may look and say, this person that always has an opinion about everything in this world, I don't need that. I don't need to keep coming back ignorantly into this world. I don't mind coming back to help others and to awaken them, but I certainly don't want to be here and just live lifetime after lifetime because I don't have a guarantee of where I'm going to be the next time. I may have a great fall, or I may be in the hell realm, or in the ghost realm, and it's something that there's no guarantee. what could happen. Today, I was talking to one of my friends that said she had this dream after going to these people's houses. And when she went to their house, they had a lot of antiques. And the when she's was there, they're very expensive antiques. Some of them were chairs, antique chairs, and then that night she had a dream that she saw somebody that was in sitting in the chair, and they were dead. And the family just was not interacting with the dead person, but acting around them in the dream. But when we see things like this, sometimes it's that person had truly had a vision, and they were looking at somebody from their family that had passed away but didn't want to leave. So they made themselves comfortable in a chair. So there's a dead person sitting in a chair. You don't want to do that, right? If you hold on to your body, you hold on to your possessions. You know how much this chair is? I can't take it with me, so I just might as well sit out the rest of my existence sitting in the chair. Nobody else is going to have it. I'm going to stay here. This is ignorance, isn't it? That's how people become ghosts sometimes. But when we look at things and we clear, then we understand we have a choice that we can choose to choose Buddha, choose the Buddha mind, and choose liberation in this way. When there's liberation, it is a, a liberation, but not of the ego or of the self. It's a liberation from the ego and from the self. There's a difference. Let me say that again so that you guys are clear about this. A liberation is not you becoming liberated. It's mind becoming liberated from you. I wish I could command like um, um, uh, thunder on command, because I would have gone in this moment because it's that way. That things happen. It was very funny because I during the retreat I um, I I slipped and fell and hit my head really hard. And then somebody said, in the neighboring community there was an earthquake. And I thought to myself, gosh, my gosh, I can't believe there was an earthquake. And I went, I really got to lose weight. That's a joke, by the way, but some reality to it as well. But in any case, it is something that we can still preserve our personality, but we don't cling to it. We use it for expedient purposes. We use it to make people at ease, especially when you're talking about something um, uh, like what I'm talking about today. Everything is kind of an amalgamation of everything I've read in preparing for this class, without ever resorting to the words that are there in the different sutras. But it is the spirit of what those sutras are talking about and how they interlock in terms of that. Let me go to one of them, the Sutra of Perfect Enlightenment. And it's talking about and saying, good sons, all sentient beings, various illusions are born from the perfectly enlightened, marvelous mind of the Tathagata. All illusions are born from the Tathagata. So we talk about the Tathagata Garbha. Garbha means the Buddha womb. This is where all this comes from. It comes from the Buddha womb. If you have a dream, what is the source of the dream? Not you. You're a dream too. So how can you, a magically produced puppet, create a dream? It all comes from the Buddha mind. You just keep going back until you finally get to the source. It is what we do with the practice of the Huatou. Um, uh, what is Wu? What is Wu? What is Wu? We're constantly trying to go to the source, not just to the beginning of it, but to the source from where that came from. It doesn't have a name to it. We can call it mind, but it's a source. When we get to the Chandor, that Chandor is the source, irregardless of whatever method that we use to meditate or how we use to contemplate. Arriving at the Chandor is the height of the Mahayana metaphysical study of this wisdom, this highest samsaric wisdom. In order for us to quote unquote transcend, we have to let go of the idea of an ego. We cannot drag our tails through the door. It is a matter of letting go completely. It is easy in one sense, and it's definitely easy to say if I say, let go of yourself. But unless you understand the Shurangama Sutra and say, Ananda, that's not your mind, you're trying to drag yourself into the absolute, it's not going to work. The absolute cannot enter. The samsara body cannot enter the absolute. It's no matter how much you stretch it, how could you stretch your body to the absolute? It's impossible. Your body would be ripped into thin shreds before it got even the size of a mustard seed into mind. Let it go. You have to practice letting go, practicing and believing and having faith in what the sutras are saying. So then we continue here, and it says, just like the sky flowers come to exist from the sky. All right. Apart from fireworks or any clever kinds of things like that, have you ever seen a flower in the sky? No, I'll answer for you before somebody's mind gets too clever. No, that's an illusion. That's why they are always mentioning this. Sometimes they'll say the horns of a hare being a rabbit, or the hair on a tortoise. Tortoises don't have hair on them. Turtles don't have hair. But those are illusions. So, but where do these illusions come from? Is they come from mind. You have to understand that. They come from this ignorance that came into the radiance of mind, but it is this radiance of mind that enabled this ignorance to stay. So when we practice, we have to even let go of the radiance of the mind, because that's the last fortress of the ego, is this radiance of mind. Because as mind sees it, it perceives it to be something of some kind of an illumination, but that's just simply the place of the creation of ignorance within the Tathagata Garbha, within the Buddha womb, is where it is created. But returning it back beyond that into its primordial state, that's why when they talk about never returning again, um, and and where the mind is going to be stable. That's complete enlightenment, quote unquote enlightenment, meaning that the mind is stabilized there. That's at the level of a Buddha, beyond the level of a Bodhisattva. But again, as we talk about this, I cheapen it by even talking about the level of a, or the state of a Bodhisattva and the state of a Buddha, because it isn't this way. In the Sutra of the Demonstration of the Inconceivable State of Buddhahood, the Buddha asked Manjusri if he had attained the state of a Bodhisattva, and he answered saying, if you attain the state of Buddhahood, then I too have attained the state of a Bodhisattva. And this was made to clarify and show that there aren't these levels, there aren't these states. It's very profound, extremely profound, because it can point the way towards liberation by letting go of any conception, including the conception of a radiant mind, even the conception of infinity as well. But even though illusory flowers vanish, the nature of the sky is indestructible. So the nature of the sky is indestructible. I often use Han Shan's demonstration of taking a sword and cutting the sky open. And I really think that this is a very powerful statement. But was the sky harmed in any way by being cut open? No, we didn't harm it. No, nothing that some glue wouldn't fix. The illusory mind of sentient beings also vanishes based on illusion. The illusory mind, the mind that you're using now is the Buddha mind, but that illusory mind that sticks there and wants to hold on to something. What time is it? I'm hungry. This cushion's not enough, or whatever it is. I don't understand what the heck Gilbert's talking about. All of those things then is the illusory mind. Just settle down, listen to what's going on. But that while all the illusions are utterly erased, the enlightened mind is unchanged. When they say enlightened mind, what they're talking about is the absolute mind is unchanged. It doesn't make a difference. Whatever's going on, whatever illusions are there, when you wake up in the morning and you had a weird dream, does the weird dream stay with you? Maybe your memory of it does, but you realize you're not in that dream, right? At least I hope so. You're in a different dream. It could be good dream or bad dream, but it's a dream within a dream. The use of illusion to speak of enlightenment is also called an illusion. If you say there is enlightenment, you are not yet free from illusion. If you say there is no enlightenment, the same thing. Therefore, the cessation of illusion is called unchanging. This is Nagarjuna, Madhyamaka school or middle way school. It's neither exist nor non-exist. It is this point where you have to be able to see, okay, this in this way, that if you go this way, it's this way. If you go that way, it's that way. It's like an old 70s song, clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. And here I'm stuck in the middle with you. And And it isn't in that way. Just go through. Not you go through, let the mind go through. It will envelop all of that. All of those illusions will dissipate just as your dreams dissipate when you open your eyes in the morning. It's the same way. Okay, I reached the limit today. Hopefully I got the point across, because this is important. And some of you are studying the Sutra of complete enlightenment, and I wanted to expound on that a little bit, or perfect enlightenment. I wanted to talk about that a little bit, so that to give you an idea of this. Especially, there's a lot of more people that have come on now, since the last couple of retreats. So welcome. If you didn't understand everything, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Little by little, it takes about a year to really begin to penetrate deeply. Even now, you'll be able to penetrate some, and have an interest in it. Just be patient with it. And as you begin to practice more, you'll see that this all begins to fit together. So thank you very much for listening to me, and share it with your friends, and invite others. Amitofo. I will take questions.
Hello, Master.
Who is speaking?
This is Arvind.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
During the talk, you mentioned about the nature of the sky being indestructible. Now, this might be a very silly question, but sky itself is something that can be spoken about as indestructible. Is there something different referred to when you talk about the nature of the sky being indestructible, and not just say the sky is indestructible when talking about emptiness?
Say that last bit again, so I follow you. Make sure I
Now,
follow you.
the part where I'm asking is, what is the significance of saying that the nature of the sky is indestructible, rather than just say maybe the sky is indestructible? Like, what's the importance of the word nature of the sky in that particular context when you were talking about it?
What do you think? Well, you've been around here for a while, so what do you think is the difference? It's a good question, really good question.
I think when we say sky is indestructible, we are still talking about an attribute of something called the sky. But when talking about the nature of the sky, we're also talking about the nature of everything, not just the sky. So that nature being indestructible talks to something more wholesome than just talking about something called the sky itself as an individual entity.
You see, you knew it all along. Good. Just this way. It is the nature. The nature, this is our highest presentation of Buddha Dharma, is the Tathagata Garbha and Buddha nature. And it is this, that's the difference. Because one, when we refer to sky, it is just a reference of something there. But when we talk about the nature of sky, we're saying nature of emptiness. And so the nature of emptiness is different than saying emptiness, which is just like an empty can, versus that there's still something there. What is that's there is the Buddha mind.
Hmm.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Next question. If I get a hard one, Arvin, I'm going to have him ask you. Okay, Rosalind.
Master Gilbert,
Long time no see.
Amitofo.
Amitofo.
Today's your lecture is the answer that I have been searching for. And I want to thank you for sharing. So, what happened was I have been doing a massive countdown of the Taiwan retreat. So, I'm trying to study as much as I can. And whatever muzzle that everyone gives me, but I felt really, really sick. My body couldn't take it. I guess it's my ego at play. I think I shared with some of the previous two sessions. I had a severe neck pain that lasted for 2 weeks. In addition to my neck pain, I also started getting insomnia. So when I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, oh, time to read more sutra. So I'll read until I get tired and I sleep. Then after that, I wake up again at 4 o'clock. Oh, time to read more sutra. So it got so bad that on Sunday, when I visit the doctor for the fourth time, I basically cried because my ego is too big. I really couldn't cope anymore. So my doctor said, Rosalind, I don't think your master is expecting you to be a superwoman in just a few weeks. Maybe you should just relax. Sorry, there's suddenly an alarm here. Okay, so what happened was at the same time, because Sikh, right? Sikh means medicine Buddha is the guru. So to be more on the ball, I actually attend 2 temples in Singapore. Since I've retired, I am a scholar, so I can read very well. And I'm also a lawyer, so I'm very analytical. So I attend 2 temples, the Singapore Buddhist Lodge that has a 21-day full day chanting for the medicine Buddha because to celebrate his birthday. Separately, nearer my house, I also attend the Buddhist Union, which help to, I think they're both Mahayana. So the doctors said, how can you attend everything? I said, yeah, but I want to learn as fast as I can. And the doctor said, no, 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 no. If you cannot just sit for one whole day, just sit for 1 hour, right? If you cannot go to the temple, just pray at home. Buddha will understand. So, yeah, that's my sharing for today.
Yeah. Well, what's happening to you is now you're on Buddha time. It's like my assistant Esther and me, we've been on Buddha time now for several years, because her hours and my hours, as you know from being from Singapore, then are totally reversed. And so we still communicate with each other, even waking each other up sometimes. But on my part, it's just this way. But don't worry, don't be in too big of a rush to get everything. In due time, that you'll be able to get it. Don't push your body to the limit. But on the other hand, if you feel like you are inspired to study, then study. It no, as long as it's not where you're trying to affect your health. No, but if you can study, you'll find that as you study and you're in the Dharma, you actually require less sleep, and so it's that way. So since I came back, I've been indulging myself in sleeping sometimes 6 hours a night, but most of the time I can get by on 4 to 5 hours of sleep, which most people can't do. But then again, I rest every moment. So if you learn to rest in the present moment, it's fine. But don't harm your body if for some reason your blood pressure is going up or you're getting dark circles under your eyes, and then just cut back a little bit and just the quality, I think, in your study, and I think is there. I don't think you have to do anything to increase the quality. Just in due time, it will all come. Okay, just be patient with it, and it will come. But thank you for the report. You're doing fine. Don't worry. And yeah, listen to your doctor, Master Shen Yang. He said, listen to your doctor 100%, but only believe 50%. He actually said that. Actually, you find out that's actually pretty accurate. I don't think Western doctors would appreciate that, but it is somewhat truthful. Okay, Wei Shan.
Hello, Master. I have earlier you talked about eighth consciousness and Tathagata Garba. It sounds like you're equating the two. I honestly, I always have trouble with this so-called eighth consciousness because by the name it's called a consciousness. And from a Heart Sutra, it says consciousness is empty. So how do you address this, or what's the relationship between Tathagata Garba, eighth consciousness, and the consciousness empty? Because the illumination perceive that the all five skandhas are empty. To me, the eighth consciousness still belong to the five skandhas. So I have trouble understanding these.
These are different doctrines from different points of view from the Tathagata Garba practice to the Yogacara practice. You know, the Abhidharma has its own way of seeing everything as real. The Mahayana Abhidharma is different. Madhyamaka is also, they're all ways of trying to interpret what mind is or isn't. They're helpful, but don't get caught up in trying to blend them all together. They have their purposes and helpfulness in terms of explaining things, as I did in the retreat, and using the Yogacara model to try to show the ultimate emptiness of the first seven consciousness. Those consciousness are they all, the seventh through the first is all samsaric in their way. You would have to say that all of those consciousness in 1 through 8 are all, if you looked at Tathagata Garba, all of them are incorporated in there, even if they're an illusion. And if you look at the Madhyamaka school, they would also include the illusory consciousness of the 1 through 7 as well, but those would be apparent reality, where the eighth alaya vijnana consciousness would be the absolute. In the Tathagata Garba model, it incorporates all of those as part of it. Looking at it, the Madhyamaka, a way of looking at it, is a very good way of trying to process that, just simply because in the end it doesn't explain mind. If it explained mind beyond what presenting the two truths, it could be rebutted, just like Abhidharma is rebutted when they say that everything is real, so all of that belongs to mind, it's all real, and then it's refuted. But when Nagarjuna presented that as a middle way between Yogacara and Abhidharma, what he was doing was he actually answered it, but he answered it by not answering it within samsara, but answering it in the absolute. And that's the difference. But it looks like, well, that's not much of an answer. I can't see anything. Well, you can never see anything. I don't understand it. You will never understand it, because you cannot hold on to the absolute, but nevertheless, the absolute's there. In fact, it's what creates everything else. So when we begin to look at it, don't get caught up at right or wrong on those. Use them as tools, microscope, a telescope, whatever, a CT scan, all these different kinds of ways of looking at things to analyze them and then see them. Again, the beauty of Madhyamaka is that it doesn't, well, you could say it suggests the answer simply by inviting one to reconcile apparent reality and absolute reality in a way that's inconceivable, which means that it has to go beyond what is the ego is capable of producing as an explanation. So if you see it in this way, it'll make sense. But don't try to make an ultimate reconciliation of everything. You're just going to be chasing your tail with that. But I understand where you're at, and hopefully that will help you with that. I really suggest you contemplate that difference where there's the apparent reality and the absolute, and it looks like Nagarjuna didn't complete his analysis for fear of being rebutted, but it wasn't that way. His rebuttal was that the answer lies outside of existence and non-existence. So it's that way. But it's good. That's where you should be right now, looking at that. So thank you for the question.
Amitabha. Thank you.
Anybody else? We have time. No comments today?
Can I say something?
Wendy?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
I'm maybe a bit of a rebel, but I listened to Rosalind there earlier, and I was just thinking, I was very much like that, like trying too hard. It's opposite, it's actually counterproductive. Like me, right? it's yeah.
Yes, and I don't want to diminish her effort too much, because I could have said something contrary to that, but I want her to continue to practice as much as she can, and then ratchet it back in her own way, rather than taking a rest. I want to really keep her pushing right now. But I understand what you're saying. And again, there's a story I could have brought her that could do that. But I hesitated just simply because she is she really is inspired right now. And I'd rather have her collapse, like using a Watteau than to give that up now. So we'll see how that goes with her. Later on she'll settle down, but that's fine for right now. There's always a difference depending on who you talk to. If I'm talking to somebody that's an intellectual, then I would say it's counterproductive to try too much. But somebody who's there and is has their mind engrossed in the Dharma, that's definitely something that you want her to keep going in that way. Okay, so that way she will find that it is in this way that she might find it just simply out of fatigue of the ego. Okay, but yeah, I do thank you, Wendy. And like I say, sometimes it's that way, but you're still here, so it didn't affect you too much, so that's good.
No, but I just think it's everything middle way. Too much good things could do you harm, actually. That's my point anyway.
Sometimes, especially if you're taking vitamins, but here, the point that I wanted to make with her is that she's engrossed in the Dharma, and there's sometimes people like Penny that's here who was using her Watteau nonstop for a long time. It pays off. And so if it's somebody that's just trying to intellectually achieve certain successes, then it'll take them twice as long by pushing so much. But her sincerity in terms of the practice is good, and she'll eventually she'll ratchet it back, but it's not bad right now. Okay, but thank you, Wendy. Yeah, your point is well taken. Rosalind, you're back for a second cup of slop.
Yeah, one of the questions which I wanted to raise was with the neck pain. I think someone in the forum suggested maybe I should do more repentance. In other words, I've done a lot of sin in my past lives, and my past lives goals or karmic creditors are coming after me. So one of my
You call them
friends
karmic creditors?
recommended me to go to Gitsi Gaba chanting of the Gitsi Gaba Sutra. Maybe that could help. So I chanted that for a couple of days, but I mean, I don't really like to go to a place where a columbarium, a lot of dead people's looking at you, but I'm not sure. So I'm just wondering whether you have any insights on that.
We do it in the way that we feel naturally. We don't try to trick ourselves into not going to something because we don't want to be around other people. But on the other hand, shaman repentance practice is very vital. One of my masters said it in this way that you don't put new wine into a barrel without cleaning the barrel first, and so it's something that it is a very strong part of my practice, shaman repentance, almost to a daily practice and awareness. Sometimes it's instantaneous awareness when I say something stupid or harmful or actions or think something that I'm instantly repenting them. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I don't have to worry about the past life karmic collectors. I got plenty of them in this lifetime I'm still dealing with. But in any case, it's something that it is an important part of the practice that we do that, and that helps us, and it keeps us honest and keeps us from developing an ego about our practice. Again, like I told Wendy, is that right now you have an exuberance that is something that when somebody catches on like you're doing, ride that wave until it burns out, and then kind of renew it again. But it's okay. It won't last, all that much time. But if it does, even more so, you find a way to be able to keep it going that way, and it's good. Okay. Some people, because they really want to get it, sincerely want to get it, but then they burn themselves out, because then it's like somebody who sits and meditates and gets a good sitting for a half an hour, and the next day they do 2 hours, and then they burn their legs out and they don't want to do it anymore. I think that's what Wendy was mentioning, which is good advice, but you just have to guard against that and then just keep going with the way it is right now. Because I've been following you carefully, so I've been kind of watching you and cultivating you, just like I do with many of you that are on here. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Well, I got a few more of these lectures before I go back on the road for the last time, and then I'd take a very short break and I start up again in January. But in any case, I'm glad to be able to share a lot of the things that I was doing on this last retreat. It was a very a wonderful retreat in a wonderful location with people who were very respectful and appreciative and listened a lot. And I can't say enough about the reception that I received there, and the people that were practicing there. It was a very, very good retreat, one that I was able to really present the Dharma in an unrestricted way. So I was very happy to have that opportunity. And I don't know what my health bears in store with me. I'll have to see. So part of it is tomorrow I'm going in for surgical procedure to, I guess, numb out my lower back. And if that works, then I won't be too bad when I go back over. But we'll see if that works or not. It's not removing the problem. It's just simply masking the problem. But right now, I just as soon take that. So we'll see how that comes out tomorrow. I'll know by tomorrow evening. Anyway, so thank you all for listening. Again, invite people to come. From the people from Chan Grove, I can see you there. Amitofo, it's good to see you there, and very happy to see you all, and you all wanting to have more Dharma, and that's really encouraging. So thank you very much. The young man, the Dr. Ray Huang, he's there with the fascia. If you see them there, and he was the one that wrote the letter that I put on the Mind Work Forum, and got a lot of positive responses from the sincerity of his letter. So anyway, I will try my best to support all of you in all your different venues. If I can do it, I will try to do that. Okay, so thank you all. Joyce, glad to see that you made it back home safe and sound to the cornfields. But that's good. But in any case, to all of you, thank you all for coming and continuing to support this. I think this is a unique lecture series in terms of that. And please just keep bringing your questions here and also to the Mind Work Forum. I think right now there's a tremendous momentum in both places in terms of how this precious Dharma is being presented and preserved. And so I'm very, very happy about that. Thank you all.